Alrighty, well, due to the road trip, I think the boxthorns will be taking a back seat until I come back. But I want to talk about a fifth option. Yes, fifth option. Me and my father were talking about that we sort of knew about, and he came up with an idea that was a pretty intelligent little idea. Now, there's one little bonfire stack where I've actually got a small boxthorn on one end. He was telling me about another large boxthorn. They pulled out a couple, but they had a big one, and it had a trunk. It was big. It was probably 7 inches or something like that, at least 7 inches. And that was still in the ground, alive. And he got a whole heap of, he went to a working bee thing, they cleared something out, and there was a whole stack of crap old wood, or I think it was a fence that come down, you know, like a back fence that's, you know, made out of those real crappy blooming palings. And he lit those boxthorns up, and there was the green one in the middle, and the heat of the other two burning sort of dried out and killed the green one. But to burn the whole lot to the point there was not even a stump left, he just kept throwing on all these palings and threw on a great heap of them, and yeah, it burned to the point there was not even a stump left. And from something like 7-inch trunk to not even a stump left. You know, this is like a full-size plant with a 7-inch trunk. There was nothing but ash. And underneath some of the pines, there's been a lot of little ones, little branches, you know, only flipping 2.5 inches thick, that have broken off in the wind, and with, you know, sheep nudging against them and stuff like that, and fallen down. A lot of that bonfire is actually made up of those, not of boxthorns. So my plan is to get the big boxthorn thicket that I can't get into the middle of, get all those sticks and that, and, you know, the ones that aren't boxthorn, that are reasonable size, and take them down and throw them on top of the thicket. And I've killed the outer ring of that thicket quite well, except one with a leaf disease had set in on it, and there was only little buds, and it didn't have enough, the leaves, because only little buds, weren't big enough to absorb the poison. That one's come back. I'll give that one another spray, and then we would have killed all of the outside ones. But to help things along, I have those little bits of pine, and, well, a few other dead bushes of it's a different sort of a bush. I don't even know what it's called. It's some sort of a native bush, and there's about 3 of those dead near it. And I'm going to break those branches off because some of those are gone rotten, and throw those on top, and just keep loading all this dry wood into the middle of the thicket where there's the live ones. Now I'll be able to light up the outer ring without a problem, and hopefully then it takes to all the dry, dead wood that's laying on top of all these other green ones in the middle. And yeah, I've also, well, there's a whole bunch of floorboards that are looking a bit shonky, and some proper 4x2s and stuff like that that are also sort of going rotten, and a bit of pine decking that's not treated and it's sort of going rotten, and I may get all of that other old crap and also throw that on top. So there'll be so much other dry, half-rotted wood in there, in the middle, that it'll just take them out with it. The other option, he said, is you can actually, with some of the other banks, if I've got troubles killing them, for some reason, I think it's the angle of the hill or something, I can actually get into where the stumps are on some of those. And some it's a bit sketchy, or you can get it on one side but not in on the other side. And he suggested actually throwing a whole heap of old rotten floorboards and random shit underneath the damn things, and then dousing them up and lighting them up, and basically creating a fire underneath. And of course the flames go upwards with convection, and that'll just wipe them out that way. Because they're actually, if you've got enough, as I've explained once before, if you've got enough dead stuff around a green one, it'll take the green one out. And what better dead stuff than, I've never really showed it, but I've got to show it on camera one day, all the construction timber. There's flippin' stacks of it out there that he got on the cheap at a clearing auction of a sawmill that was moving to another town. And he got all this stuff on the cheap, and a lot of that, some of it's alright, some of that's been left out in the rain for too long. And there's a whole heap of stuff where my old boss back in the early thousands, who used to do a lot of kitchen renovations, they done a whole, car dealership. And it was really big inside, and they replaced the whole stinking lot of the floor. And, my uncle bought his truck up there. I'm talking the big old red Dodge one out there, the big tipper, and filled that up several times. And all those floorboards are also starting to rot, even though they're hardwood ones, because some of those go way back. But yeah, between all this rotten crap, I'm going to try and basically create heaps of wood that I aren't otherwise going to use, and probably some of the dead boxthorns that I've chopped off by drilling through them, jam those underneath some of these ones that are a bit too tall for me to poison right to the top, and then go for it. I met the other bloke, the one who was saying he had a boom spray that he got to go right over the top of some boxthorns. He told me that he lit those up only 2 weeks, I think it was, after he poisoned them, and he said to me they're actually still green. What he meant was there was still wet sap inside. They hadn't actually dried out. He said the leaves had died, but if you drilled a hole into it or you whacked an axe into it, it was still wet inside, and he used diesel and sump oil to burn them, even though the sap was still wet. And I thought, well, that's a bit more to the story I thought he was just telling me the same story again, but he told me in a bit more detail, and I was quite surprised. But that's another little thing to keep in mind. I am learning an exceedingly large amount about these plants, and I may even do a little video explaining the exact life habits and stunts and everything that these plants will play, and all the tricks in the book that you can do to wipe them out on a permanent basis, because I'm getting quite knowledgeable on all the different methods, the ones that do work, the ones that don't work, because I'm going through and I'm testing all these different methods, and learning quite a bit about these plants and all their shortcomings and all they're a lot more resilient than the average tree by about fivefold. But, in all that, that's something you've got to take on board when you do attack them, is that they're not going to flame and go down without a fight. But if you hit them in the right way, you will get them. And yeah, one day I might make a big half-hour lecture on every stunt that you will face eradicating these. But that'll be for another day after I've tried a few more things.